In today's dynamic and unprecedented business environment, it is crucial for individuals to seek out continuous skill development. It is necessary because what skill you knew, where you are very good, where you thought you're very competent, is irrelevant because the shelf life of knowledge today, my dear friends, is almost zero. Today, COVID took the whole world by surprise. All that we were doing suddenly looks like it is irrelevant. That means we need to uh, find out the new you, right? We need to re-establish, right? Probably all those things that worked for the organization, all those things that worked in our careers, in our jobs, in our growth, in our progress, suddenly seems to have taken a nosedive, and then you are in the search for a new competency. And that's where the situation is, on one hand. And on the other hand, you look at it, organizations must get behind their people to support and encourage individuals to increase their knowledge, to increase their competence and performance on an ongoing basis, which means we cannot relax. That is why our human resource professionals, our partners in learning and development or training and development in many organizations across carry a big load on their shoulders because their job is continuous. Because you're talking about continuous improvement, because the shelf life of knowledge is almost zero. So that means, how do we enrich our people? How do we enable them? How do we get them ready to face the new challenges? Becomes very key, very important. And performance keeps going up, going down. The best of companies have done very well. Best of companies have done not very well. Best of companies have closed down. Plenty. Enron is no more. WorldCom is no more. Right? Companies can struggle. So that is where your effort, your thought about competencies becomes very important, right? And that is where when you talk about, but every person learns in different ways. Every human being is driven and motivated by different influences. And that's where the challenge is. The challenge is, my dear friends, understanding how employees are wired to take in, to process, and to act on that information that is critical in determining the optimal way to develop and engage with them. Because everybody is different. So your one size fits all approach does not work in leadership. So that means if I want to inspire and motivate somebody to perform, what worked with Mr. A may not work with Mr. C or Mr. D or Mr. M. So then, that's where the challenge comes. If one size does not fit all, then how do we bring up the capabilities and competence of each one of my team members? How do I apply different strategies to suit them? Before we continue, let's look at the root of performance. Human behavior evolves, it develops over a period of time, right from the birth, through a combination of heredity, which is the genetics that we are talking about, the upbringing influence, our early influences by our parents, by our grandparents, probably my elder brother, elder sister, or our neighbors, the kith and kin, the television programs I saw, the books I read, upbringing influences. Then, of course, there is always a situational influence. The way even talking about a school-going child, the home environment is one situation. The school environment is one situation. The child can actually completely flex and change. The way I talk to my boss is very different from the way, half an hour later, the way I talk to my junior in my own team. Right? That means based on two different scenarios within the same organization, in a space of half an hour, 1 hour, my behavior can change. That's the situational dynamic that we are talking about. And of course, there is the environmental influence. If I worked in a particular company for 4 years, 5 years, yes, the environment of that company, the culture of that company, the leadership dynamic of that company is going to have an impact on the way that I operate. That's why they say, there is a beautiful saying in Sanskrit They say, Yatha Raja, Tata Praja, right? So is the king, so is the citizen, right? So our life experiences, our knowledge, our skill, our attitude and education helps us develop the core competencies with which we thrive, with which we do well in companies, and then that we go ahead. Attitudes, you talk about attitudes, are again a result of habits and mindsets. Very difficult, very interesting. We'll come and more we'll talk about attitude, because that's where the whole of behavior really revolves around, and that's where people struggle with not knowing how do you tweak these behaviors, because attitude seems to be a stumbling block, right? Again, a result of habits and mindsets. So now you look at that expression, they say glue-like mindset. They say die-hard habits. So that means glue-like mindset, it is so sticky, you cannot change it. You may call and talk to your team members, you may have a team meeting, you may say 101 things. Glue-like mindsets, they will go back. Die-hard habits. It is not that they know what is right. I know I should not get angry, but why do I get angry? Right? That's the die-hard habit. And of course, when it comes to attitude, we say concrete wall-like attitude. So now behavior competency analytics becomes very important, because you're dealing with, whether we like it or not, we have to deal and encounter every day different people with their glue-like mindset, their die-hard habits, their concrete wall-like attitudes, not to mention my own glue-like mindset, my own die-hard habits, and my own concrete wall-like attitudes. So it is important to measure the impact of such influences on the individual to predict a response to different changes that are coming around in the organization, outside the organization. So we say the petal analysis. Petal basically stands for P for political, E for economic, T for technological, E for environmental, PTL, L for logical, and the legal, and of course the S for social. Each one of these dynamic is changing. So how well am I as an individual, am I as a HOD, am I as a CEO, right, responding to these changes in the environment to take my organization higher, right? Different changes, different job demands. We have different customers, everybody has a different kind of a demand, right? Different bosses we work with, different colleagues, we interact with different departments within our own organization. So how do you raise to those job demands? And then of course there are the internal drivers, and not to mention the stress points. It's not easy, right?